Welcome back to the Tanakh Daily Learning Challenge of Israel365 in memory of the father of Rav Tony Weiss. We are up to Shoftim, Perek, Yud Gimel, and Yud Dalid. And this is where we start the story, the very famous story of Shimshon HaGibor. Okay, so in Perek Yud Gimel, of course, it starts with saying that the Jewish people once again stray from the ways of Hashem, and Hashem punishes them by giving them into the hands of, meaning letting the Plishtim, the Philistines, persecute them. And this time it says for 40 years. 40 years. Can you imagine that? That's half from the state of Israel. Half of the time in the state of Israel. Very, very long time. And then it goes on to describe the birth of Shimshon. So there was a man in Tzorah. Tzorah is very close to Beit Shemesh. We know that. There's a place in modern day Israel called Tzorah. He was from Dan, right? Shevet Dan. And his name was Manoach. And his wife was childless. And all of a sudden, one day, a Malach Hashem, an angel of God, appears to the woman and says to her, "You're going to have a son. And what I want you to do is I want you to, from right now, from the moment you get pregnant, I want you not to drink wine, not to eat anything that a Nazir, all right, a Nazarite is usher to, is not allowed to eat, because you're going to give birth to a son, and you should never cut his hair, because he is going to be a Nazir mibeten. In other words, not a Nazir when he grows up and decides one day to be a Nazir. He is going to be a Nazir from the moment he is born, and he will begin to save the Jewish people. So the woman comes home, tells her husband again, his name was Manoach. She tells her husband that a Ish Elokim. Now she thought at this point, it seems from the story, that she thought it was a Nabi. It was a prophet, that it wasn't an angel, an actual angel of God, right? So she says to her husband, a Navi, an Ish Elokim, came to me, and he looked like a Malach Elokim, right? No Ramod, he was very frightful. The way he looked, meaning very, very scary. And I didn't ask him where he was from, and all that. And then she went on to tell him what he did say. He did say that I'm going to have a son, and he has to be a Nazir, etc. So Manoach wasn't satisfied with this, and he prayed to God that this Ish Elokim, that this man of God, this godly man, should reappear to them and tell them exactly what they have to do. So God listens to his prayer, and the Malach, the angel, reappears to the woman when she's in the field. And Manoach wasn't there. As again, he appears to his wife twice, not to Manoach. So she quickly runs and tells her husband, and Manoach comes and says to this man, he says, "Okay, are you the man who came and spoke to my wife?" And he says, "Yes." And please, repeat or tell us exactly what we have to do. And he repeats that she can't drink wine, and she can't eat anything tameh, which means anything that a Nazir is not allowed to eat. Simple as that. Now, Manoach then says to the angel, "Okay, can you please stay for a little bit and eat with us?" So the Malach says to him, "I can't eat your bread, and you know what? If you want to bring an olah, if you want to bring an offering, bring it to God, not to me, right?" And then it says explicitly in the pasuk Tet Zayin, "Ki lo yada Manoach ki malach Hashem hu." He did not know that he was a malach. He thought still he was a navi. He was a very holy man, but he did not know that he was actually an angel. So then he asked him for his name, and the Malach says, "Why are you asking my name? Hu Peli," right? It is something wondrous, meaning you can't understand. And Manoach takes a gdizim, he takes a certain animal, and a mincha, a bread offering, and he puts it on the rock that is there, and in front of his eyes, a wondrous thing happens, and a fire comes out of the stone and eats up all the entire korban, the entire offering that he had offered, and with him went up to the heaven this angel. And at that point, finally, Manoach understands that this is not a man, this is an actual angel of God. And therefore, he is very scared, and he thinks that he's going to die, because we saw a malach, Elokim, and people don't usually live after that. And then his wife, who clearly was a little bit wiser than he was, said, if God wanted to kill us, he wouldn't have showed us all these things. He wouldn't have given us this sign, and he wouldn't have, told us all of these things, that we're going to have a child, etc. Obviously, they're not going to kill it. He's not going to kill us. And the chapter ends that the woman goes and has a child, gets pregnant, of course, and has a child, and she calls him Shimshon. And then it says in the very last pasuk of Hey, Vatachel Ruach Hashem lefa'amo b'machane Dan bein Sarah u'bein Eshtaol. Again, these are two places right next to Beit Shemesh. So the Spirit of God began lefa'amo. What does that word mean? So there's at least 4 different explanations. Lefa'amo, some say, Rashi says, it comes from the word lefa'amim, that every once in a while the Spirit of God would come to him. The Radak says it's a lashon of strengthen him. The Ruach Hashem, the Spirit of Hashem, began to strengthen him. The Metzudas David says it means leho licho, meaning to guide him, to show him great things. And the Dat Mikra says it's to awaken him. And to awaken him, let's leave it that way. So the word lefa'amo has many different explanations, but this is a very crucial point that we're going to see in the next parak, that we're talking about somebody who got nevuah, who had Hashem, Ruach Hashem, tachel lefa'amo. So a lot of the things that we're going to see in the next few chapters seem like he was this like low-life guy, he just, was a womanizer, but we have to remember that he got nevuah. Someone who got nevuah is on a very high spiritual level, and therefore we can't judge him. We have to understand a little bit deeper what exactly happened here. And in fact, there's a very worthwhile book to read called very small, thin book called Samson's Struggle, which explains the whole story of Shimshon. We'll point out some of the things in the next chapter. But basically, he goes along those lines that he was a Navi. He was, someone on a tremendous spiritual level, and these things that he did were all part of a plan. Because it says about Dan is Nachash by Yaakov. Yaakov blessed Dan that he should be like a Nachash. I don't know the exact lashon. I can look it up, but ikvesus, that he bites the heels of the sus, which means that he has to be like a nachash and do things in a roundabout way, in a tricky way. And all of the things that he does is in order to allow him to attack the Plishtim and put them in their place without the Plishtim thinking that he's doing it from Am Yisrael's perspective, but that it's a personal vendetta, as we'll see in the next chapter. So Shimshon grows up, obviously. He goes to a place called Timnah, and he sees a woman there, one of the Plishtim women, and he wants her. So he comes back and tells his parents, I want that woman. Could you, take her for me? Could you get her for me? So his parents are a little bit taken aback, there's not enough Jewish women that you can go out with and marry. Why are you going to these Plishtim? And Shimshon insists, no, this is the one I want. But look at Pasuk Dalet. This is crucial to understand the whole story. This was all part of God's plan. that he was looking for a pretext from the Plishtim, how to get back at the Plishtim, fight the Plishtim in a way that he'll be able to defeat them by himself without getting the Jewish people involved in that, without the Plishtim taking out their vengeance on the Jewish people, but only on Shimshon personally. Right? Right? They were the rulers, and that explains, since they were the rulers, they were in charge. You can't just go and rebel against them. You have to do it in a smart and a tricky way, and that's what Shimon. It was all Me'et Hashem. It was all from God. God planted this in his head. And again, in this book, Samson's Struggle, it says that Shimshon also understood that. He understood that he was that prophecy that was being prophesied by Yaakov Avinu. That I'm going to look it up now because it's very important for the whole story. So it says, right in Parshat Vayechi, where Yaakov here, Dan Yadina Moke Chachite, so he Dan Nachashale Dara. Dan should be like a snake on the way. Shiftifon le'ora, another way of saying that. Hanosheich ikvesus, bites the heels of the sus by pull the horn. He makes the one who's riding the horse fall backwards. Lishuatka kibiti Hashem. In other words, and Shimshon understood that he is the fulfillment of this prophecy, and he has to do it like a snake. He has to be sly like a snake, like we saw in yesterday's parsha. Okay, so Shimshon and his parents go down to Timnata, and they get to a certain place where actually it's clear from the story that his parents must have been off to the side, must have been, I don't know, doing something else, because they were not here when this happened. Shimshon sees a young lion, and it says in Hashem, the spirit of Hashem came over him, and he simply tore the lion into pieces. Tore with his bare hands. He tore the lion apart, and he never told his parents this. And we'll see why in a minute. And okay, and he went down. They continued their journey. They went down to Timnah, and he likes the woman. And a while later, okay, there was then the arrangements, I guess, for the wedding. And then they went back. And then a while later, they come back. And when they come back, Shimshon deliberately passes by the place where he killed that lion. And he sees that in the carcass of the lion, I guess the bones of the lion, there is a beehive. And in it is honey. And he takes some of it and he eats it. And then he goes with his parents and he gives some to his parents also to eat, but he doesn't tell them where he got it from. Just give that. I found some honey. And they all go to the woman who's supposed to be his wife, and he makes a big party. And the woman's side, or the Plishti, she takes 30 Plishti men to be like, it's called the Shushpanim, right? They're the people who misameach, who sort of I guess accompany the couple throughout the 7 days of joy of their wedding. And Shimshon has some fun with them, and he says, you know what? I'm going to give you a riddle. And if you can tell me by the end of this Sheva Brachos, so to say, by the end of the week, if you can tell me what it is, I'm going to give you 30 nice sheets and 30 changes of clothing, meaning I'm going to give you a lot of stuff. And if you can't, though, you have to give me 30 new garments and 30 nice new sheets. So what is it? Oh, the riddle is in Pasuk Yudal. From the eater comes food, and from the strong comes sweetness. And they had no idea what the heck he was talking about. And finally, on the seventh day means on Shabbat, right? There's not. It was sometime in the middle of the week. That's what the Mepharshim explained. Yom HaShvi means Shabbat. They're getting really frustrated because they don't know the answer. They're now going to have to give him 30 garments. So therefore, they say to the woman, go and seduce your husband to tell you the riddle, or else we're going to burn you up with your whole family. So she goes to Shimshon and she cries, "Why do you hate me? You must hate me because you didn't tell me the answer to the riddle. Why didn't you tell me the answer to the riddle?" And she just keeps on bugging the heck out of him until finally he gets on the seventh day and he tells her the answer, which of course is that from the lion's carcass, the lion is the eater, came food, i.e. sweetness, the honey, and from the strong, which is the lion, came sweetness, which is the honey. So she goes and tells the 30 Jair, the people of the city, and right before sunset, they come and say, we have the answer, and they tell him. Then he says in Pasuk Yud, Vayomer Lem at the end of Pasuk Yud, had you not, literally means plowed with my goat, with my egel, with my calf, which means had you not convinced or pressured my wife, lo mitzatem chidati, you never would have found the answer, and you would have to pay me. So what does he do? He goes, and again, Hashem, a spirit of Hashem. Again, showing that he's obviously a very spiritual, very important, a very frum Jew. Okay, because Hashem doesn't let his spirit rest upon people who are lowlives. And what happens? He goes to Ashkelon and he kills there 30 people. He takes their clothes, 30 Plishtim. He takes their clothing and he gives it over to the people who told him the right? And he says, "Okay, here, I have to give you 30, here it is." And he gets it. And of course, at the end, he's very upset about it, right? And he goes back to his house. And then, last Pasuk Chaf, which is going to lead into the next parak, but the Eshet Shimshon Mereu Asher Re'alo. Basically, his wife started living with one of the other men that had been one of these 30 people who had this bet with Shimshon. And that's going to cause, again, start seeing that he's doing all this to get into fights with the Plishtim, but again, on a personal basis, as if he's not acting calm because of Yisrael. He's acting on his own. You took my wife, you found out the riddle because you pressured her. The whole thing is all a personal fight, and he, with his tremendous strength, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu rested upon him and gave him this great strength. It's not because he was a muscle man. It's because Hashem gave him great strength. He was able to kill many, many Plishtim and help the Jewish people in a roundabout way, again, to fulfill that prophecy that Yaakov said that it has to be like a nachash. Okay, we'll continue the story of Shimshon. With a few more prakim about Shimshon. We'll continue that tomorrow, and I think tomorrow we're going to actually see you all in person.